Welcome to Irresistible You. This is Karen Seltz coming at you from Phoenix live, and I'm so excited. I have a very special guest with me this evening. I rarely have a guest, but I'm so excited. I was really inspired to share her with the world because I know of her work. I know so many people that have met their their husbands through her program. And I've been single for a really long time. So I have a kind of a vested interest in hearing what she has to say. But Gladys and I go way back. We met, 5 or 6 years ago in a leadership training, and I've been following her from the sidelines ever since. Gladys
Mhm.
Diaz is my guest tonight. She is a dating and relationship coach. She's an author and a speaker, and her mission is to empower every woman on the planet to have the experience of being loved and loving every single day of her life. And she runs a company called Heart's Desire International with her twin sister, Michelle. They're called the Love Twins, and you got to see them. They're amazing. So, anyways, welcome, Gladys. I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so happy to be here. I'm happy to have this conversation with you. Every time I think of how long we've been in each other's lives and how like what a beautiful path, a beautiful experience we shared together for was 3 months or more. I think it definitely was one of the most powerful experiences of my life. So I'm glad we got to share that together.
I know, me too. And then here we are back in each other's lives again. So, what I would love, you have such an interesting story around, what you went through regarding love and relationships. I would love for you to share a little bit about that. And then what led you to being so passionate about helping other women to find the love of their lives?
So my story, the very, very short version of it is I tell people all the time um that I'm probably the poster child for who should not be in a happy, loving relationship. And and that's because of, when you look at my past and there was a lot of early years were okay. It was just once my mom married and it was a very um dysfunctional relationship, and then she got divorced, and then she remarried and she got into a very abusive relationship. And so we spent many years, those years that they were together, hiding and running away, and police officers constantly at our home. There was a lot of alcohol and addiction, and in my family lineage, abandonment. I don't know anyone on my mother's side beyond my grandmother, who I only saw a few times in my life. And so I was like the history. So when people start talking about, oh, I can't be in the love that I want because fill in the blank, everything that happened, then I just tend to let them know, like, I don't buy that. I just don't. I don't buy it. I honor what they went through, and I honor the pain and the experience, but I don't believe that your past is a predictor. I believe it's an informer. I don't believe it's a predictor of what's possible for you when it comes to love. And so after my mom was in that marriage, what ended up happening was she ended up leaving. Not until many years later did I find out that it was that she couldn't bear the thought that she was going to lose custody of us. She was not in a mental state or in a capacity that she could take care of myself and my two sisters. And so she couldn't bear that somebody was going to tell her that. But as a 15-year-old, all I saw was my mom didn't even show up. She didn't even fight for me. And so that just added to the story, because my father died when I was 3. My grandfather, who became like my surrogate father, the divorce, like my story became that when I love people, they either leave me or they die. And that solidified it for me. Thankfully, I had a friend who stood for me to go to her youth group, but she would not stop. Our friendship almost ended. I told her, if you ask me more, I'm just going to go, because if you ask me one more time, we're stop being your friend. And I reconnected with somebody who I'd known since kindergarten. And I had actually seen him earlier that day at my school. He was singing with the concert chorus. And then I saw him that night at the retreat that I went to. And I was like, oh my goodness, we became best friends. Eventually we fell in love many months later. And then we got married 3 years later. We were together. We were married for 5 years when we found out that he had cancer. And I was 25, so was he. So we did not expect that. He didn't smoke, he didn't drink. And after a year and a half, after about nine months of chemo and an amputation, and he was a musician and wanted to be a chef. So that was very, very difficult because they amputated his left part of his left arm. He went into remission, and I was sure that he was healed. And then a year and a half later, the cancer came back and they just could not keep up with it. And about 9 to 10 months later, he passed away. And when he passed away, without me knowing, a very strong belief came to the surface. I recognize it now as a fear that I was never going to love or be loved again. And I believed it. I mean, I believed it with every fiber of my being that I was 20, at that point I was 27. I would never love or be loved again. And one day I heard myself saying that to someone. And I remember thinking, what did you just say? And then I asked the question that literally led me to where I am today, which was, what would have you say that? And that's where I uncovered fears and limiting beliefs and insecurities. And it wasn't that I was never going to love or be loved again. I didn't think anybody else would ever love me again. And I was terrified to have my heart broken again, to lose another person. I dove into the work of, I was unwilling to stay in that life sentence that I had sentenced myself to unknowingly. And 4 months later, I met the man who's now been my husband for 25 years. And we've been together 26 years. And Michelle, my twin, she was going at this time, she was going through her divorce and unsuccessfully dating for a long time. And she started a book club for women because she was having such a powerful experience of, she stopped chasing men. She was like, I'm done with that. The right man for me is going to come to me. And she did a book club, and the author said, you should have a happily married mentor. And she asked me to be the happily married mentor. And at that time I was not happily married. Rick and I were going through a tough time. So I said, you know what, everything I teach these single ladies, I'm going to do it in my marriage. And in 2 short months, everything turned around. And then we had a bunch of women in relationships. So the question was, when are you doing the next one? And when are you doing the next one? And here we are 16 years later. So that was a pretty long way to tell the story. But the reason I share it is because if you haven't lost a parent, then you may have experienced divorce, or you may have lost somebody who loved you, or somebody betrayed you, or somebody left you, and you've made that the reason why. Whether you know it or not, like I didn't know what I was saying for months and months and months. Your past informs what to do, what not to do, but you get to create the love that you want. You get to create that love story.
Yeah, that's so incredible. And it's so funny. You probably hear this all the time, but I went to your master class a week or two ago and I'm like, yeah, I've done so much work. I already know all the things. And I was in there, I don't know, 10 minutes and I'm like, oh crap. I didn't know that was there. And I'm raising my hand for everything. I'm like, yep, that she's talking to me. So I imagine you work with a lot of women that are like, yeah, I've done all the work. And then they get in there and they're like, whoa, I didn't know there was so much left. And
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was
Well,
really fascinating.
it doesn't surprise me because the women who come to our events, so they've been on the majority, the vast majority, have been on a personal development journey, a spiritual journey, looking not to fix, sometimes they come to us thinking there's something wrong. I tell them there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. It's simply that what you've been doing hasn't worked to create the results that you want. So if you did the forgiveness work before, and you still haven't attracted the love that you want, what if there's one more layer? What if there's just 1 more centimeter, one more layer, when you're pulling out weeds, or you're garden. I'm not a gardener, and I always use these gardening examples, but when you just pull out a weed, if you don't see the roots of that weed, you can bank good money on the fact that that weed is going to be there in a couple of weeks. You're going to come out and it's going to be like, I can't believe this is happening again, which is what we say in our love lives. I can't believe I attracted another emotionally unavailable man. I can't believe that I got betrayed again. I can't believe that, I trusted somebody and they broke my heart again. And so what we do, and the reason, when women come, we tell them, you don't want to forget the work that you've done. you want to honor it by getting to that next layer. Because when you break through, when you finally break through down to the core, to the root, the freedom that you experience is amazing. But then all the stuff that you learned before, that you said, I did it and it didn't work, all of a sudden it starts to work, because now there's a clean, like the seed has a space to grow in, unencumbered by all of the fears and the limiting beliefs and the dysfunctional patterns and the stories that we've created. So, so many women, they'll say, but I worked with a coach, or I've gone to therapy, or I've gone to retreats, and I've gone to, these events, and it hasn't worked. And we're like, okay, what if we just go one layer deeper and you finally break through? What then becomes possible for you? So that's what excites me about my work. That's why we do these, events and master classes all the time. And it's never the same, because there's always something new that gets broken through, something new that gets resolved finally. So your past is in the past where it belongs, not in the present or in the future that you're creating.
Yeah, and I love your process for really can you walk us through a little bit of like how you get women to uncover these beliefs that are really unknown to them? They don't know their beliefs. They don't know that that's what's stopping them.
Right. Well, it's an introspective process. So it's mostly asking them questions, and sometimes because they've done, there's most of the women we work with are they're goal driven. The event that we had recently was highly driven and deeply loved. They're used to, I have a goal, I learn the plan, I follow the steps, and I get my result. And so that's why it feels very frustrating, especially for a woman who's highly driven, successful, is used to getting results. Like, why can't I get it in this area of my life? So we use an introspective approach that's through questioning. But if I had to like summarize it into 3 steps, first of all, we call it the heart work process, not hard work. Everything's relationships are hard. Love and relationships don't have to be hard. They're only hard when you don't know what to do. So that's why we teach you the skills. But we have a three-step process where we distinguish, we identify what is the limiting belief, what is the fear. And like you said, some of them are like, but I don't have a fear. And especially strong women will argue with me that it's not a fear. It's not a fear. Like, okay, well, if it was a fear, what would you be afraid is gonna or not gonna happen? But through the questioning, what starts to happen is what's been in the subconscious, in a blind spot, starts to make its way forward. And all of a sudden, just like that moment that I had, that I was like, what would have me say? It's like that kind of moment, like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even know I was holding this thing against. I thought all these years I was mad at my father, and really who I was mad at was my mother for staying. There's like this revelation. So first we distinguish, then what we do is we dismantle. So we start to take it apart, like what was it that happened, and how is it still impacting you in your life, and what are some of the beliefs that you have around that, and the decisions that you've made, and the results that you've created. So we start to break it apart, and I say, let's break it apart to sawdust, because you can't crazy glue sawdust back together, right? So we don't just want to shatter it, we want to like disintegrate it, and then we replace it with not something different, not the opposite, but what actually works. And that's where we get into what we teach them, the mindset, the skill set, and the heart set, which are, how do you transform your thoughts? How do you transform? That's the mindset. How you transform your heart? We call it the heart set, meaning the beliefs that you have about yourself, your relationship with yourself, what you believe and say to yourself and say to others about yourself. And then the skill set. How do you date successfully? How do you communicate? How do you create, not just attract a man that's going to love you, but then how do you keep that love growing stronger and stronger year after year? So that's the process that we use. Mostly people are surprised that it's simple. It doesn't always feel easy, because when you've had a belief for a very long time, like, if I love you, you're going to leave me or die, it can feel like, but how am I supposed to give that up? Like, I've been believing it for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years. The process is so complete that once they replace it, they really start to identify, like a fear, for example, like being afraid, like it's ridiculous. It no longer feels as real as it used to feel. So it's I love it. It's an intuitive process. It's an introspective process. And the best part about it is the freedom that women feel on the other side of it. It's just nothing like that.
Ah, I love it. And I've seen so many of your testimonials, and these women, it's incredible to me how quickly, once they do this work, how quickly they can attract the love of their lives. And so I would love for you to share with us, like what some of your testimonials that come to mind, that like maybe somebody was hard to work with at first, but who then once they got it, it's like, holy crap, they really got it.
So, there's one person, her, Emma, and as soon as you said somebody who's really hard, Emma literally argued with me for months. I'm not talking about a couple of conversations, like for months, that there just were not any any men who were, not that they weren't good men, they just weren't a match for her in her town. She lives in a military town. She's a former Marine, well, once a Marine, always a Marine, but she served in the military, and she just wasn't finding right men. And she'd go to the gym and she would go to social events, and she kept arguing about it. And as we started to work together, what she started to uncover, we uncovered together, was that this woman who had literally led men in battle, like in combat, she wasn't just in the military, she was like in the war zone, had seen atrocities, was terrified of admitting that she wanted to be in a relationship. She would tell people that, but yes, of course I want to get married again. She'd been divorced, but there was a terror around, like, actually opening her heart again, allowing somebody back into her heart, seeing her, and that people would know that that's what she really wanted. So I would tell her, Emma, you literally have fought with like machine guns. And it was such a real fear. So we did our fear exercise, which is one of the exercises that we'll be doing at the Irresistible Woman Live. And she just got to see, like, wow, that was a thought that was rooted in before her first kiss. Like, it was rooted in her childhood. There was a decision that she made about herself and about people and how people were with her. And it just kept playing out in her life. And she kept gathering evidence and evidence. And, I know some of our clients are watching, and I tell them, some of you bring a file folder. Some of you bring, like, when the attorneys walk into the courtroom with like a parade of boxes, like some of you have gathered a lot of evidence. But what she saw was that it was just a thought. There was a belief, a decision that she made when she was very young. And because of that decision, she had just been gathering evidence. And so she kept proving true the thing that she didn't want to be true. So once we dismantled that and we really broke it apart, she was able to see, like, oh my gosh, I really do want to love and be loved. And now she is happily engaged and just built a house, like the house of their dreams. They're engaged to be married. They've blended their families together. And I often think, Karen, like, what if I had agreed with her? What if I'd agree with, like, what if she had that conversation with another coach who didn't see her bigger than her fears and her limiting beliefs? Like, she wouldn't have the beautiful love and the beautiful life that she has now. So you just need a coach. Strong women need a strong coach, period, point blank. You need somebody who's going to see you bigger and hear your heart louder than the voice of your fears and your limiting beliefs.
Ah, I love that, because she is such a strong woman, and I totally get that. And I could see her arguing with you. That's fun.
Not hard to
So,
imagine.
no, yeah, not too hard to imagine. An ex-Marine, right? So you mentioned this event called Irresistible Woman Live. I know you do it once a year, and it's coming up very soon. So tell us, like, what do you take women through? What's the transformation that a lot of women have by going through this event?
Well, first of all, the reason it even came about, that why did we even start doing this? I think our first time was in 2015, was because we kept having these workshops. Like I said, we did one and we started with 21 women, and by the end of 3 months, like 5 of them were in relationships, 2 of them were engaged. People start asking, like, when is the next one and the next one? So we were doing all these little workshops. And what we were finding was that there were strong, successful professional women, realtors, doctors, lawyers, teachers, nurses, people who were managers and presidents in their companies or owners of their own companies. And they kept saying the same thing. Why is it that I can create, like, I can close a deal, I can convince a room of people to give me millions of dollars, for a project. I
Right.
can inspire people from a stage, and I can't seem to find one man who wants to build a life with me, who wants to have a real committed relationship. So when you keep hearing that conversation coming up with different groups of women, Michelle and I just got curious, and we started doing research within our own workshops, but then also, like, what are the challenges that successful women have when it comes to love and relationships? They're not crazy. There's something going on here, and these are all women. They don't even know each other. And what we started to find was that a lot of times women were trying to use the same skills, the same practices, the same language that they were using in the boardroom, with a client, with a direct report. They're trying to use those same skills when it came to love and relationships. So the very skills that were just propelling their career, was repelling love, intimacy, and romantic relationships. And then they started to get afraid. Well, then I can't be myself because this is who I am. Well, you are who you are at work, because the goals at work are meeting the bottom line, getting things done, managing people, telling people what to do, by when to do it, how it gets to be done. That doesn't translate when you're on a date. A man doesn't want to sit there and here's what you got to do, here's how you got to do it, here's what's going to happen if you don't get it done by XYZ time. Your man doesn't want to be managed, is one of, like, our little quotes. Your man doesn't want to be managed. And so we started saying, okay, here's how you shift. You get to be just as powerful in both areas of your life, but the power looks different in love and relationships. There's the vulnerability. Like, I don't really care if, when I worked in corporate, I didn't care if my boss would hold my hand during a difficult moment. I want to lean on my husband's shoulder when I'm going through a difficult moment. The goals are different. So we started teaching them, how do you make that transition from being unstoppable, invincible in your career, because you want to keep having the success. You don't ever have to choose one dream over another. You want the career, the success, the prosperity, the abundance. And when it comes to your relationship, you still have that same amount of power. Now it's going to be in vulnerability, authenticity, being gracious. You can be inspiring in both places, but you can't be demanding in both places. At work, sometimes it requires that. Sometimes, I mean, you're on our team, right? Sometimes I've got to say, look, this is what it's got to be done. And it's got to be done by this time. Like, we've got to hit this goal. If I do that to my husband, my husband, yeah, he's special. The total opposite will happen. And that's what was happening when Michelle asked me, will you be the happily married mentor? We were going through, like, I call it the dark ages, right? The dark years. It was about a year and a half where I just like, did I make a mistake? Like, was I grieving my first husband? I rushed in, like, I was literally, it doesn't make me proud to say that, but I was literally asking myself those questions, because here this man that would look at me and it was like the world would disappear. It was just such a beautiful love story that we created. And now he doesn't want to look at me. He doesn't want to talk to me. 5 minutes into any conversation was an argument. We started arguing in front of our kids, and that's when I started to get in front of our kid, because I was pregnant with one and the other one. And when I saw one day that we had a, like, big blow up in front of my son, and I saw my son's, the fear in his eyes, that was the day that I was like, no more. That was my not another moment. So how do I have a different conversation? Like, still get to say my thoughts, I still get to express my emotions, I still get to share my feelings, but how do I say it in a way that he can hear me, that I inspire instead of require him, that it occurs like an invitation instead of an obligation, and not manipulating him, like literally being so clear in my communication about what I need, what I feel, what I think, that he can hear me. He doesn't hear all the other stuff, like my complaining and my criticizing and my correcting, which was like static. It was like a radio station. You couldn't hear the vulnerability that I felt unsupported or exhausted. I just needed to know that I was being appreciated, because I was saying it in a complaint. And so he couldn't hear it, because then he had to defend himself. There was I was giving him no other choice but to defend himself. And now we had two people being right instead of two people being on the same page. And so we teach that at the event. We teach from bookend to bookend how to break through your we call them the love barriers, fears, limiting beliefs, and patterns that are sabotaging you and your love life, that they're blocking you. And then we also teach how to date. How do you know if a guy's even dateable? How do you, because women's biggest fear is not dating, and it's not even falling in love. One of women's biggest fears is that they're going to make a mistake that they made before. So how do you prevent that? That's what we talk about. So teach you how to date successfully. We're going to have sessions on communication, how to communicate what you think, what you feel, what you want in a way that a man can hear you. We have separate sessions. Single women go into a breakout room and they get coaching and training on how to date successfully, how to go from texting to talking to dating to relationship. And then in the girlfriend and wife breakout rooms, we talk about, how do you prevent an argument? How do you inspire instead of require? How do you make love? And maybe the spark's gone out. How do you reignite the spark in your relationship? So it is really like I say, a bookend to bookend from, I don't even know where to start, to here's how you make love last forever.
Wow. Yeah, that's so good. And I could think of so many people that I'm going to invite to this thing. I can't wait. It's going to be really exciting.
Yeah,
So
and I
what,
say when you invite somebody, the best way to invite a woman to this event is to say it is specifically for successful women who also want a real loving relationship. And I want to experience with you so that we can learn together and then we can practice together afterwards. Because you don't want to be having a master class on how to talk to a guy in the middle of happy hour, trying to teach your friend all the things you learned. No, that's not how you say it. You're having this whole like tutorial in the middle of happy hour when you can instead be talking, to the guy who might be the man of your dreams. So, when you invite women, all of you who are watching, we're going to give you a special link. Take it for yourself, take it for share it with your friend, because there's nothing more powerful than having someone that you trust, learning along with you, and then practicing with you afterwards.
definitely. Oh, I love that so much. Yeah, I popped the link in the chat if you're here with us live. And then if you're watching the replay on YouTube, I will definitely put it in the show notes. So that's amazing. So what tips, like we only have a few minutes left, but what last tips would you have for somebody who, is having trouble trusting or believing that there's somebody out there for her?
So the first thing I would say is, and I was just doing a class right before this, and I said, what, that when I heard myself say, I'm never going to love or be loved again, the question I heard, at first I said, what did you say? And then I said, what would have you say that? So if you're afraid to trust, what's having you be afraid of trusting again? If you're afraid to open your heart, like for me, I had this beautiful marriage. I wasn't afraid of marriage. I was afraid of it ending,
Mm.
right? Either in divorce or him dying and my husband dying again. So what is it that you think is going to happen or isn't going to happen? And then what if that is not the inevitable truth? What if there's something else that's possible? And all you need to learn is, first of all, is to break through that. And then your next 2 or 3 steps that you get to take. And what if in 3 days you could learn how to do that? Because that's why we're doing it in an intensive. So we have uninterrupted time. So if you've been doubting it, if you wonder if it can happen for you, I mean, sometimes I tell people just borrow my faith. I don't believe that there's any woman on this planet who wants to be in a relationship. If that desire is in your heart, I believe it's a God-placed desire. There's no reason why you can't have it. But if something's been getting in the way, let's find out together. We break through it together, then you get to be in the relationship of your dreams for the rest of your life. And the average woman who comes to work with us meets the man she's going to marry in 3 to 6 months. So imagine what your life could be like 3 to 6 months from now.
That's so incredible to me. I'm like, how's that? It just blows my mind every time I hear that. I'm like, how is that possible? But I get to be around you more so that I can borrow your belief and really like embody it. I'm excited for this event. So November 22nd through the 24th, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, be there because you could meet the man you're going to marry or spend the rest of your life with in 3 to 6 months. Come on.
We've actually
Or
had women meet the man that they're married, like two women right off the top of my head. One's in a relationship, one's married. They met him. They went to the event, and on day 2, after day 2, they went out on a date. And the guy that they went out on a date with, the guy chose, is the man they're now married to or in a relationship with, because they were like, I'm gonna practice tonight. And they ended up getting married. There's two people that popped into my head right off the bat.
That's amazing. Yeah. And then if you're in a relationship that could be better, if there's any areas you get to work on to create that, being on the same page or bringing the spark back, this is also for you. So hopefully you will click this link and see us there. I cannot wait, Gladys. I'm so excited.
I am too. I think it's, when you think about, first of all, powerful women all in one room, virtual or not. It's a virtual event, by the way, ladies. So you get to, before people used to have to fly to Florida, get room, board, flights, all of that, for 3 days, usually 4, because they'd have to come in a night before. Now you get to do it from the comfort of your home. But whether it's virtual or not, the feedback Michelle always get is like, I felt like I feel like I'm in the room with you, like the community that we have. Some of those ladies are watching live because I'm seeing their names as they come into the studio. It is a very different kind of community when you've got all these powerful women standing for each other and each other's dreams and really believing that it's possible and working together, and they go to each other's. We just had somebody get married 2 weeks ago, and there were heart sisters. We call ourselves heart sisters there watching her get married. It's just a beautiful life. It's a
Oh,
beautiful.
that's so cool. I can see like the joy on your face just thinking about your clients and what a difference you're making. I love this so much. Thank you so much for being with us, Gladys. This has been amazing. And I'm so excited for this event, Irresistible Woman Live, November 22nd through 24th. So thank you for being here. And thank you, everybody, for watching Irresistible You, Ignite Your Passion and Purpose. I will see you right here next week. Bye.